The sun burned red over the endless wasteland. The ground was cracked and dry, with jagged rocks stretching as far as the eye could see. Winds blew dust across the barren land, carrying a sharp, metallic taste. In the middle of this harsh place, a tiny sound broke the silence, a soft, weak cry. A small human baby lay on the ground, wrapped in nothing but torn cloth. Its tiny hands waved helplessly as the heat pressed down from above. Whoever had left the child here had wanted it gone. There was no sign of anyone else. Only the emptiness of the wasteland stretched in every direction. The baby's lips trembled and tears mixed with the dust on its small, pale face. Far above, a shadow passed across the cracked ground. It was huge, dark, and graceful. A dragon. Its scales shone in shades of green and gold, and its eyes glowed with an intelligent light. It circled high above the baby, curious. Dragons were not common visitors to this place, and yet something drew it down. Its massive wings pushed the air in waves, and it landed softly on the ground, dust rising around it. The baby cried louder. The dragon lowered its massive head, sniffing the air around the child. Its nostrils flared as it sensed life that had struggled to survive. Then, in a surprising movement, it nudged the baby gently with its snout. The child recoiled at first but soon felt no fear. The dragon's eyes were calm, almost kind. With a low, melodic hum, the dragon shifted. From somewhere hidden in its body came a small, glowing stream of thick milk. The dragon fed the baby, who drank with desperate hunger. Each drop felt warm and alive, giving energy to the tiny human. The dragon milk was not ordinary, it had power. Slowly the baby's cries softened, replaced by contented coos. The dragon watched carefully, ensuring the child was safe. Night fell and the red sky turned dark blue. Stars appeared like tiny diamonds scattered across the sky. The wind grew colder, but the dragon wrapped its long tail around the baby, shielding it from the chill. The baby drifted into sleep, safe for the first time since being left alone. Days passed and the baby grew stronger. The dragon stayed nearby, hunting for food and protecting the child. In the harsh wasteland, survival was never easy, but the dragon was patient. The baby learned to reach for the milk and soon began crawling around the dragon's massive claws without fear. The dragon hummed softly, approving each tiny movement. The wasteland was dangerous. Creatures with sharp teeth and glowing eyes roamed at night. The wind carried the cries of predators across the rocks. But the baby, nourished by dragon milk, grew resilient. Each day it became stronger, more alert, and more determined to survive. Its small hands could grasp rocks and its legs could push it forward. One day the baby looked up at the dragon with wide, innocent eyes. The dragon lowered its head, their faces almost touching. In that moment, a silent bond formed. The dragon was no longer just a protector, it became family. The baby's small fingers brushed the dragon's scales, feeling warmth and strength. It understood in its own way that the dragon was keeping it alive. The wasteland seemed less frightening now. The red sun still beat down and the night still held danger, but with the dragon, the baby felt hope. Creatures that had once been terrifying now stayed away, sensing the dragon's presence. The baby laughed for the first time, a small, bright sound in the endless emptiness. The dragon lowered its massive head, rumbling a deep, vibrating sound that echoed like a song. Months passed. The baby grew into a small child, walking steadily and exploring the area around the dragon. It climbed over rocks and crawled under giant stones. The dragon followed, watching, guiding, and teaching. The wasteland was still harsh, but the child was learning to live in it. Each day the dragon milk made the child stronger, faster, and smarter. One evening, as the red sun sank behind the horizon, the child stood on a high rock, looking over the wasteland. Its eyes were bright, reflecting determination and curiosity. The dragon landed beside it, wings folding with a soft thud. Together they watched the empty land stretch forever. Though abandoned and left for dead, the human had survived. Not only that, it had grown stronger than anyone could have imagined. A soft wind blew, carrying the whispers of the wasteland. The dragon hummed beside the child, a sound of promise. Somewhere in the distance, danger still waited. But now the baby was no longer helpless. It had a dragon by its side, dragon milk in its veins, and a fire in its heart. The wasteland was no longer just a place of death, it was the beginning of a story that would shake the universe. The child grew quickly. Days in the wasteland became months and months became years. Dragon milk had made the human stronger, faster, and smarter than ordinary humans. By now the child could walk easily, climb rocks, and even run across the barren land without falling. The dragon stayed close, watching over every move with careful eyes. Life with dragons was strange but wonderful. The child learned to understand them in ways that others could not. When the dragon hummed, the child could feel its thoughts, its moods, its warnings, and its joy. The dragon was patient, never rushing the human but always teaching. It showed how to find water in dry riverbeds, how to read the wind for danger, and how to listen to the land for hidden signs. The child began to play with the dragon, running under its massive wings as they soared above the wasteland. Sometimes the dragon let the human climb onto its back, holding tightly to its scales. Together they flew over jagged cliffs, past broken ruins, and across endless deserts of red sand. The wind rushed past the child's face, and for the first time, the world felt larger than the emptiness of the wasteland. The other dragons were curious at first. They were wary of humans. They had rarely seen one survive, let alone grow among them. But the child was different. It moved with courage and curiosity. It did not fear the dragons, it learned from them. It even tried to mimic their sounds, making soft hums and growls. Slowly, the dragons accepted the human as part of their group. Hunting became another lesson. The child watched as the dragon caught fast creatures with precision and strength. Soon the human learned to help. Small hands could carry water or hide behind rocks to scout the area. The dragon's magic and milk had made the child resilient, unafraid of danger, able to move quickly and always ready to survive. One night, under the red moon, the child lay beside the dragon, looking at the stars. The dragon hummed softly, wrapping its long tail around the human for warmth. "You are strong," it seemed to say. "Stronger than any I have seen." The child did not understand all of this, but it felt proud. It was no longer helpless, no longer abandoned. It had a family, a teacher, and a protector. But the wasteland was not safe. Strange sounds came from the far edges of the desert, echoes of creatures the child had never seen. Eyes that glowed red at night, sharp claws, and teeth that could crush stone. The dragon taught the human to be cautious. It showed how to hide among rocks, how to move silently, and how to use the environment to their advantage. Each lesson was important. Each step could mean life or death. Over time, the child's body began to change. Muscles grew stronger, reflexes sharper. The dragon milk had effects the human could not yet understand, but it was clear. The human was becoming exceptional. Even the other dragons noticed. They circled higher, observed longer, and sometimes let the human try new things, riding on the backs of young dragons, jumping across cliffs, or exploring new caves. The child learned quickly, always pushing limits, always surviving. Friendship grew between the human and the dragon. The child would whisper small words, laugh, and hum songs, and the dragon would respond with deep hums and gentle movements. When the human was afraid, the dragon would shield it. When the human was curious, the dragon would guide. Together they learned to move as one. One day, the dragon even taught the child to glide for a short distance, letting the wind carry it across a small valley. The human screamed with joy, falling into the dragon's arms at the end. The human began to understand the wasteland differently. No longer was it just empty and dangerous. It had patterns, signs, and life that only those who paid attention could see. Streams of water, hidden caves, and paths between cliffs became familiar. The child could predict storms, sense predators, and find food where none seemed possible. Survival was no longer a struggle. It was a skill, a game, a way to grow stronger. One evening, as the red sun sank low, the dragon and the human perched on a high cliff. The child looked across the wasteland, feeling powerful and fearless. Somewhere far away, the wind carried a new sound, different from the usual cries of animals or gusts of dust. It was distant, faint, but strange. The dragon stiffened, sensing danger beyond their territory. The human looked at it, understanding instinctively that the world outside their safe place was more dangerous than ever. The dragon lowered its head, nudging the child gently. "You are ready," it seemed to say. "One day you must face the world beyond this place. It will test you, but you will survive. You will grow stronger than any who try to stop you." The human nodded, though it did not yet fully understand. But inside, a fire had begun, a desire to explore, to challenge, and to survive. The dragon's milk had made the human strong, the dragons had made it wise, and the wasteland had made it fearless. The child had become more than just human, it had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Night fell and stars shone above. The wasteland seemed calm, but the whispers of danger continued in the wind. The human lay beside the dragon, thinking of the future, of the unknown lands, and of challenges yet to come. For the first time the child felt ready. Whatever came next, it would not be afraid. The human had learned to survive, to grow, and to fight. The story was just beginning. The human had grown taller now, stronger and faster than any ordinary child. The dragon watched closely as the human climbed rocks and explored caves, but a spark had appeared in the human's eyes: curiosity. The wasteland was no longer enough. It was time to see what lay beyond the safe territory, beyond the mountains and deserts that the dragon called home. One morning, the human stood at the edge of the dragon's sanctuary, looking across the vast wasteland. Red sand stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged rocks and distant ruins. The wind carried strange scents: burnt metal, unfamiliar plants, and something faintly sweet. The dragon landed beside the human, folding its wings carefully. Its eyes glowed softly, warning the human of danger, yet it nudged the child forward. It was time to learn, to explore, and to face the unknown. The human stepped into the wasteland, moving carefully at first. Every step was measured. The dragon followed silently, a shadow above and behind, ready to protect. The wind was sharp, carrying small clouds of dust that made the human cough. But the child pressed on, climbing over rocks and leaping across small chasms with surprising agility. Dragon milk had given strength, but courage came from the heart. After hours of walking, the human came upon ruins, remnants of an ancient civilization. Crumbled walls, broken statues, and shattered buildings rose from the sand like ghosts. The human's eyes widened. This was not the wasteland of dust and stones, it was a place that once held life. The air here was heavy with history, and the human felt an instinct to explore further. Inside the ruins, shadows moved. Strange creatures with glowing eyes and sharp claws lurked in the corners. The human froze at first, but then remembered the lessons of the dragon. Move quietly. Watch the wind. Listen. The child crept past the creatures, ducking behind stones and peeking through gaps. Each step made the human bolder. Each step made the child more confident. Soon the human found a strange machine half buried in sand. It was tall and metallic, with strange symbols glowing faintly on its surface. The human reached out and touched it, feeling warmth under the metal. Something inside clicked and lights flickered. The machine hummed softly, responding to the human's touch. It was alive in a way. The human smiled, a mix of wonder and curiosity. Dragon milk had given strength, but nothing had prepared the human for the marvels of this old world. Night fell, and the red moon rose above the horizon. The human and dragon rested near the ruins, keeping watch. From the shadows came faint sounds, distant footsteps, the buzz of metal wings, and voices speaking in a strange language. The human stiffened, sensing danger. The dragon's tail curled protectively, eyes scanning the dark. They were not alone. Something or someone was out there. The next day the human ventured farther. In the distance, a small group of humans appeared, clothing ragged, faces tired, and eyes wary. The child froze. Other humans. It had never seen another human before. They looked frightened, hiding behind rocks and ruins. The human approached slowly, hands raised, showing no threat. One of the humans stepped forward. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where did you come from?" I live with dragons," the human said, voice small but steady. The others stared in disbelief. A human raised by dragons? It seemed impossible. But the child did not lie. The dragon stepped out of the shadows, massive wings casting a shadow over the group. The humans gasped, fear and awe mixing in their eyes. They had heard legends of dragons, but none had seen one. And now this child was one of them, human, yet extraordinary. The human shared what it had learned: the wasteland, the dragons, the dragon milk that made the child strong. The humans listened, wide-eyed, afraid but fascinated. They spoke of dangers far beyond the ruins: armies, alien creatures, and tyrants who had forced humans to hide. The human realized that the world outside was far more dangerous than the wasteland, yet more alive, more complex, and more worth protecting. Over the following days, the human explored with the group, learning their ways, sharing stories, and showing skills no ordinary human had. The dragons watched from above, guarding silently. The child discovered that being human in this world meant both weakness and strength, danger and opportunity. Ordinary humans struggled to survive, but with the dragon's gifts, the child could do impossible things: climb cliffs, dodge predators, and even calm wild creatures. One evening, the human stood on a hill overlooking a distant city, its walls glowing under the red sun. The human felt a surge of determination. This world was bigger than the wasteland. It was full of danger, mystery, and life. And the human was ready to face it, to learn its secrets, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. The dragon landed beside the human, wrapping its tail protectively. "You have grown," it seemed to hum. "The world outside is dangerous. But you are ready. Stronger than any who oppose you. Smarter than many who think they are safe. The human looked out at the horizon, wind blowing across the face, and felt something new, a purpose. The wasteland had taught survival. The dragon had taught strength. The outside world would teach courage, strategy, and humanity's true potential. The adventure had only just begun. And somewhere, far beyond the horizon, the faint sound of approaching threats whispered in the wind. The human would face them. But now the child was ready. Dragon milk had made a survivor. The wasteland had made a fighter. And the world beyond would soon learn that humans, even one human, could change everything. The human had changed. No longer a child, no longer fragile, the human now moved with strength and speed that surprised even the dragons. Dragon milk had done its work. Muscles were lean and powerful, reflexes sharp, and the mind alert and clever. The wasteland had taught survival, and the outside world had taught strategy and caution. Now the human was ready to face challenges unlike any before. It began with small tests. Alien war machines had been discovered among the ruins, remnants of battles long past. Rusted but still dangerous. The human approached carefully, studying every part. Some machines still had power, lights flickering, weapons that could strike if disturbed. Yet the human moved with precision, disabling traps, climbing over metal structures, and avoiding danger that would have killed an ordinary human. Dragons watched from above, wings spread wide, eyes glowing softly in approval. The human learned quickly. Each encounter taught something new: how to predict movement, how to use the environment to an advantage, how to turn danger into opportunity. Soon, the human began performing feats that others said were impossible. It jumped across deep chasms, dodged alien predators, and even tamed wild dragons that had refused humans before. Word began to spread across the wasteland and ruins. A human had grown beyond ordinary limits. The human began to gather allies. Some dragons, impressed by courage and intelligence, joined without hesitation. Other creatures of the wasteland, those that respected strength, followed cautiously. Even humans in hiding, those who had barely survived under tyrants and alien armies, approached. They saw the human not just as a survivor but as a leader, someone who could fight impossible odds and protect the weak. With each success, the human's confidence grew. The dragon milk coursing through veins gave power, but the human's mind was sharper than ever. Strategies were formed to defend the wasteland, to explore new territories, and to confront enemies that thought humans were weak. The human was learning to combine intelligence, agility, and raw strength in ways no one had imagined. Then came the first real confrontation. An alien patrol, part of a large army that had once tried to control this sector, appeared near the human's territory. Metal war machines moved in formation, weapons ready, scanning the land. Ordinary humans would have fled. But the human did not. The dragons circled overhead, ready to strike. The human studied the machines, noting patterns, weaknesses, and paths of approach. With calm and precision, the human set a trap. Rocks were moved to redirect movement, sand and dust to hide shadows, and small explosives scavenged from ruins to confuse sensors. When the army advanced, it met resistance unlike anything it had expected. The human moved with speed no machine could match, striking weak points, disarming weapons, and leading the dragons in coordinated attacks. Machines fell, some destroyed by fire, others toppled by dragon strikes. The human's allies followed orders instinctively, trusting the one who had survived so much already. By the time the patrol retreated, the wasteland had a new legend, a human who could defeat forces thought invincible. As victories grew, the human began to understand a larger truth. Humans were underestimated, seen as weak and fragile across the galaxy. Yet here, in the harshest environments, survival, intelligence, and courage had combined to create something extraordinary. The human was living proof. Strength alone was not enough, but a human mind guided by experience, resilience, and the power of dragon milk could achieve the impossible. One evening, the human stood on a high cliff, looking across the wasteland. Fires burned in the distance, remnants of alien patrols, and the wind carried the cries of creatures and dragons alike. The human felt a surge of pride, not for destruction but for survival, leadership, and the ability to protect those who could not protect themselves. Dragons circled above, allies stood behind, and humans watched with awe. The child who had been left for dead had become a force to be reckoned with. But the human knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with enemies and unknown dangers. Tyrants who had abandoned humanity, alien armies who saw humans as weak, and forces beyond comprehension would challenge this new power. Yet the human did not fear. Every lesson, every struggle, Every drop of dragon milk had prepared the human for this moment. Strength, intelligence, and courage had awakened together. Humanity was no longer hidden. Humanity was ready to rise. The night grew quiet, but the human remained vigilant. Eyes shone with determination, heart steady, mind sharp. The dragons landed nearby, humming softly, protective but trusting. The human touched a dragon's scales gently, a reminder of the bond that had created this strength. The wasteland had made survival possible. Dragon milk had made extraordinary. And now the human's mind and courage would make legend. A faint sound drifted across the wind, the approach of more enemies far beyond the horizon. The human's eyes narrowed. The army would come. Tyrants would come. The galaxy would come. And when they did, they would meet the one human who had survived death itself, learned the strength of dragons, and awakened the full power of humanity. The human took a deep breath, feeling the wind, the power, and the responsibility. This was no longer survival. This was a battle for recognition, for life, and for the future of humans everywhere. The dragon hummed in agreement. Together they would face what was coming, not as victims but as legends. The human had awakened. And the galaxy would never forget it. The human stood atop the highest cliff in the wasteland, looking down at the armies that stretched across the horizon. Thousands of alien soldiers, machines that glowed with energy, and monstrous beasts that prowled the land. They had come to conquer, to destroy, and to prove that humans were weak. But they had underestimated one human, a human who had survived death, learned from dragons, and grown beyond any ordinary limits. The dragons circled above, wings spread wide, scales shining in the red sun. They roared in unison, a sound that shook the ground and sent echoes across the cliffs. The human felt the power of the dragons, the energy from their milk still flowing through every vein, every muscle. Heart steady, eyes bright, the human stepped forward. No fear. Only determination. Allies gathered behind, humans who had survived the wasteland, dragons who had joined by choice, and creatures who respected courage and strength. They looked to the human not as a child, not as fragile, but as a leader. A symbol. Someone who could turn the tide of battle with courage and intelligence. The human raised a hand and the group waited, knowing the plan would succeed. The first wave of the alien army advanced. Machines whirred, weapons charged, and the air shimmered with energy. The human moved swiftly, faster than the eye could follow. With precise calculations, the human led dragons to strike weak points in the machines. Fire erupted, metal twisted, and alien soldiers scrambled in confusion. Every move was clever, strategic, and terrifying to watch. The human leaped onto a fallen machine, using it as a bridge to another. With dragon milk strength and agility, no obstacle could stop the human. A dragon dove from above, claws extended, and the human leapt from its back to strike another enemy machine. The alliance of human, dragon, and instinctive intelligence created chaos the army could not understand. They had never seen such coordination, such cunning, such fearlessness. A massive beast, one of the army's monsters, charged. Its eyes glowed red, teeth like blades. Ordinary humans would have panicked. But the human stood firm. Dragons roared, circling to distract the monster. The human dodged and jumped, striking at weak points, guiding the dragon's attacks. Together they toppled the beast, a feat that should have been impossible. The army hesitated, watching this single human turn the battle. More soldiers advanced, weapons aimed directly at the human. But strategy, speed, and intelligence were weapons too. Using the environment, the human led traps, collapsed terrain, and coordinated dragon strikes that left the army scattered and confused. Machines fell, soldiers fled, and the creatures that had come with the army were forced back by sheer coordination and courage. The wasteland had become a battlefield where the impossible was possible. As the sun set, red and golden light reflecting off scales and armor, the human stood tall. Breathing steady, eyes bright, the human looked over the battlefield. The army had been defeated, not by sheer numbers but by ingenuity, courage, and the unique bond with dragons. The humans who had followed now saw what was possible. The dragons roared in celebration, and even the beasts who had come with the army backed away. This was victory, but more than that, it was a statement. Humans were not weak. Word spread quickly. Across the wasteland, ruins, and distant cities, stories of the dragon-blooded human traveled. Humans who had hidden in fear began to rise. Aliens who had mocked or attacked humans began to hesitate. Everywhere, the legend grew. A human who had survived impossible odds, who had been abandoned, nourished by dragons, and awakened to a power beyond ordinary comprehension. Yet the human did not stop. There were more challenges, more enemies, more unknown dangers in the galaxy. But now the human had confidence, allies, dragons, and skills that could face anything. The wasteland had made survival instinct. Dragon milk had given strength. Intelligence and courage had awakened humanity's potential. The human was no longer alone. Humanity in its most extraordinary form had arrived. That night, under the red moon, the human sat beside the dragon. Stars glittered above and the wind whispered through jagged rocks. The human's hand touched the dragon's scales, feeling warmth and trust. The dragon hummed softly as if saying, "You have done what no one thought possible. You have become more than human. You are a legend." The human smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of tyrants, armies, and creatures that would challenge humans again. But the human was ready. Every step, every trial, every drop of dragon milk had led to this moment. Survival was no longer enough. Humans would rise, inspired by courage, intelligence, and resilience. And the legend of the dragon-blooded human would be remembered for generations. From the cliffs, the human looked out across the wasteland, dragons hovering, allies ready, and distant cities twinkling. The battle had been won, but the story was far from over. The human had become a symbol. Humans were underestimated but unstoppable when they rose. The galaxy would learn a lesson that could never be forgotten. One human raised on dragon milk, abandoned but unbroken, had changed everything. And somewhere far beyond the horizon new threats stirred. But the human would face them. Stronger, smarter, fearless, and bonded with dragons. Humanity had awakened. The legend had begun.